Well, good morning again. Thank you all. We were so delighted to be able to bring that message to you. Let me invite Richard Kai, the president of the Institute of the Americas, and Jose Luis Manzano to the virtual stage again one time with me. Richard, over to you for the formal introduction, and I can't wait to ask Jose Luis a few questions right along the lines of what we just heard from Mr. Picard.
Well, good morning, everyone, and for those of you on the West Coast, and good evening and good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast in Europe. It's a pleasure to have you all today for the final session of the La Jolla Conference, our 30th annual. I thought Bertrand Picard's remarks this morning were very inspiring and gave us a sense of our discussion today about the future and about how we can be looking at environmental protection, but also looking at profitability in the context of the energy agenda. So before we begin, I would like to first thank our energy and sustainability team here at the Institute, Jeremy Martin and his leadership. He's our vice president for the program. I want to thank Diana Rodriguez, who's been instrumental in putting this program together, Cecilia Aguillon, Rita Oliveira, and Carlos Fernandez, our webmaster, who's been integral in this whole effort. So thank you all. I also want to thank our sponsors for the conference, our steering committee members, and also our non-resident fellows, all that have been instrumental in bringing this La Jolla conference together and making it a success. And we're looking forward to hopefully having all of you with us in person in La Jolla next year. That's our plan, and that's our hope. With this, we end the day with the cherry on top, focusing on finance and investment. We'll discuss how to bridge the finance gap, how ESG is driving capital and investment, and what is needed to ensure and support low-carbon solutions across the region, from the private sector, the multilateral development banks, government export credit, as well as finance agencies. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce our opening speaker, Jose Luis Manzano. Jose Luis is chairman of Integra Capital, an investment firm focused on generating profitable, equitable, and inclusive sustainable economic activity and producing value to all stakeholders involved in a transaction, and been very active in Latin America. Jose Luis is also a member of the board of directors of the Institute of the Americas, and we thank him and his team for their support and participation in our program, including sponsorship of our La Jolla conference, as well as his active membership on our Energy Steering Committee. We look forward to Jose Luis's insights as part of our opening session today, focused on low carbon goals and bridging the finance gap. With that, I'd like to pass it over to Jeremy so he can formally start the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and indeed, thank you, Jose Luis and your team, Javier Alvarez, Mechi, and Cecilia. They've been great. So let's get right to it. We keep hearing the refrain, more energy, less carbon. What does that mean to you and your investors and your stakeholders?
Well, first, thank you for having me, and congratulations for the Institute team for the conference. What it means? Well, it means several things. Basically, if you pay real attention to the content of more energy, less carbon, it's a call of alarm on the climate crisis and a call of alarm on corporations, how corporations act, what do we have in our business plan, how we do it, because you see an evolution. We've been in the sector since 2008, and we've been into the discussion of climate change since 2006 or 2008. And we learn through errors, we learn through seeing trends. So basically, is that you have to look at your portfolio, you have to reduce your fossil activity. It's not enough to say somebody has to do it. You have to reduce your activity. If everybody reduces the activity, you have to reduce where you put your eyes on, and you have to listen to the market, and you have to understand. This week, what happened in three fronts, it have been mentioned already. The Shell ruling, the Exxon shareholders meeting, and the Chevron shareholder meeting. The three signals that the market is being impacted by the discussion, maybe it's also being impacted by consumers, It's clearly impacted by the Paris Agreement, and it's clearly impacted by the change of leadership in the US government. So if we don't see those signals and we do not react to those signals, the crisis will make companies fail. And the companies fail because we'll become unable to access finances. So it means that whatever you do, it has to be real, it has to be measurable, and it has to imply changes in portfolios and changes in behaviors.
And that's so I think the trick there is exactly delivering increasing amounts of energy across the world. In our region, of course, the need for more and more energy as we grow or hopefully grow again. So look, the term ESG, I mean, you highlighted those three hallmark events on Wednesday. But the issues and the construct of ESG has been building for a few years now. So I'm very curious, building upon what you just talked about, how is ESG influencing in directing your activities?
Yeah, I think the way the concept was created, maybe somebody made a mistake because it was driven from the environmental discussion. So environment came first. And obviously, the environmental crisis is huge and is the biggest challenge. But the key comes with the last word, which is governance. I think we have to bring an accelerator of change. My view is that the accelerator of change are women. I think if we really get into the boardrooms and force women into the boardroom, I think we will accelerate the change. This has been my experience in politics. When you look at the world, when you bring women into politics through quotas, to affirmative action, to a real legislation intervention, you get change. You get change for better. So I think governance is not about transparency. It's not about check and balance on how we protect the money of the investor. It's not anymore. Governance is how the companies that are in this field really play the role of being the tool to transform it, to being the tool to stop the crisis. It will not be government. Government can create the set of rules, but the players are the companies. So how the companies change faster from the top is from the top. You say the shareholders are the top. We saw this week. We just saw this week. The shareholders are at the top because securities law are being constructed in a way in which active shareholder has a say. So we have to bring with my first thing I think in governance. Okay, we follow all the rules and we bring a lot of women. And on top of that, I would say young women or women committed to energy transition. With that, you will force the discussion. Because we sit in a board and we are 10 guys that we've been doing oil and gas the last 30 years. We will keep doing the same thing. So you bring in women. Second, social responsibility is community. When you go around the world, the amount of mining and oil projects that have been stopped for not engaging correctly, for not engaging deeply with the local communities, shows you that is key, but not only make it viable. Let's say we are all talking of energy transition. There is no energy transition without critical materials. There are no critical materials without mining. Critical materials to do at the speed of light, because to get to the 2030, 2050 goals, you have to go at the speed of light. So you're going to go at the speed of light, it has to be through mining. Recycle will do a lot, will do fantastic, will cover a small percentage. It's mining. This mining is in the mountains, normally, or in big deserts. People around. Even in big deserts, people around. People that feel they are entitled to what, and people that normally they are unfriendly to mining. So without community engagement, the mining will not happen, the price will skyrocket, and the transition will be slower. And then environment, to me, is two tools. One is whatever is done has to be measurable. Second tool, we will need a carbon tax because we act on this. Okay, now there are market signal, responsibility. We are aware of the problem. 3 years ago, we are still discussing, or 5 years ago, is there a climate crisis or not? Now, with the change of the US government, is accepted by every meaningful government in the world that there is a climate crisis. Okay, we have the basis for it. But how you make it happen through taxes? We will need a carbon, we need incentive, we need subsidies, all those things, but it should be a tax and it should be measurable what the companies do. It's not just responsibility and self-commitment will not do it.
You stole one of my future questions to ask you to assess the debate around carbon pricing. So thank you for answering.
This theory of bringing women at very fast, it should be the institute idea, not mine, because I'm just copying. I'm just copying good experiences in every modern democracy.
No, absolutely. I think
where you don't have many women in government is with authoritarian government. Look around, look the picture.
The women in energy. No, absolutely. I think we are 100% committed, and we've done our best throughout the course of this conference to include expert voices that are indeed female. So you jumped on my question. I did want to ask about your thoughts on price and carbon. That's a very clear message you've given. Let's go back a little bit to the oil and gas question, because what I'd like to hear, you gave some very clear signals and discussion around the sort of 3 pillars of ESG. What about technology? I'm very interested in Integra, and so if we need to get to net zero, if we all are committed to get to net zero, what is the technology? What are you optimistic about?
If we need to be optimistic, and we want to be optimistic, we have to be technology neutral. And we have an expression in Spanish, which is tragar sapos. We will all have to some frogs. What it means?
Frogs, huh?
But tragarse un sapo is you eat something that you don't like. Okay, say nuclear will play a role. It's people that doesn't like nuclear will play a role because carbon is playing a role. So if not, we all talk. We will live in California. We have solar panels and we have Teslas, but then people will keep burning tons and tons of carbon in South Africa and China and Germany, and it doesn't work. So nuclear has to play a role. Second, batteries. Batteries are the buffer. Batteries are the way of dealing efficiencies in daytime delivery of solar and wind and hydrogen, no doubt. Why hydrogen? Because of past experience. Years ago, wind and solar had a problem. It was too expensive. Now they are not expensive anymore. Size, government intervention in China, government intervention in the US, government intervention in Europe, created a situation in which solar has become absolutely efficient and wind is very efficient. And when in wind you move to 5 megas, 7 megas wind turbines, and in solar you go to mega projects. It's up very, very, very efficient. Then you will have cheap energy. When you have cheap energy, you have 2 ways of dealing with this. You go to batteries or you go to hydrogen. Where is the bottleneck for hydrogen today? It's the cost of the hydrolyzer. A hydrolyzer is not more complex than a solar panel or a wind turbine. So hydrolyzers or a cell phone or an appliance, same path, price will go down at very fast speed until hydrolyzer become a commodity. When hydrolyzers become a commodity, hydrogen will not be, green hydrogen will not be any more prohibited. So I believe all these technologies converging, and then one thing which is in the back of all of it is Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. You have to be efficient. We got the message at the beginning of the panel, efficiency. And efficiency on existing capacity is a big challenge. Bringing efficiency to because we cannot rebuild the planet Earth. We have to transform and transit. And for that is bringing efficiency. Bringing efficiency, we have to be, things will have to be built. You have to connect or through hydrogen or through a pipeline or through a high tension line. But at the same time, you have to manage efficiently. You have to know data on your consumers. You have to have data on your market. You have to run layers of artificial intelligence on it. And you have to have Internet of Things on things that are consuming a lot. And so the component of digital technology, top of the whole thing of the different sources and how you integrate. So the future energy pattern, the future energy general complex, I see is several sources with a fast reducing role for hydrocarbon. If we are politically successful, if we get commitment from the big burners, growth of solar, wind, hydrogen, batteries, fully integrated on smart, not smart grid, smart energy systems that are based on data analyzed through artificial intelligence. That's the future. That is the future. That is success.
Which makes anyone in the business of cybersecurity and consultants around cyber very, very interested in perking up, because there will be an enormous
indispensable. It's like if human beings wouldn't have the virologists, where would we be if we didn't have the guys that spend their life behind a microscope? Where would we be? We wouldn't be having the conference.
Well, I'm married to one, so I wouldn't be anywhere.
We would have lost 50, 100 million people.
No doubt.
200 million people.
Let me
people around because of them. This is the same. The cybersecurity for this future I'm describing, the cyber virus will be as destructive as are for us. Yeah. So the cybersecurity component exceeds totally my knowledge, but it's indispensable because we will rely on computer, on servers.
Yeah. Well, anyone who's living in the Southeast or Mid-Atlantic of the United States a couple of weeks ago would agree with you wholeheartedly. But before we move on, because there was one technology, and I want to put your feet to the fire a little bit here. I didn't hear you talk about carbon capture, what's commonly referred to, CCUS, carbon capture sequestration. Where do you see that, if at all? Is it viable?
I think it will have a role. I think it will have a role. Everything will have a role because there is money behind, there is knowledge. You don't build a huge building with 3 materials. So everything will have a role. Will all depend on local situations, local regulation, corporations, budget, what leadership in the companies believe. And so we have to go tech neutral on this. We have to go tech neutral of this. We will not get there 2030. For example, we have moved big part of our portfolio to lithium, natural gas, and electricity. We are in the middle of trying to acquire the biggest electricity utility in our transforming in a mostly green source. That's the plan. So we impact 10 million people, 14 million people in one shot. That's the idea. But it has to be neutral. It is not neutral, it will not work. Some people may go in a small nuclear reactor. Some people will keep building solar or wind, and they will deliver to the grid, or they will go into hydrogen, or they will do wind plus battery or solar plus battery.
Yeah.
So the thing is that any kilowatt or any horsepower we get should come at a lower carbon content, at a lower carbon cost for Earth. That's the thing. So we have to be tech neutral, and if we are tech neutral, carbon capture will play a role.
Excellent. Well, we're starting to run out of time. Let me bundle a couple of questions, and we do have a couple of questions from the audience I'm going to mix in. But let me wrap up sort of and allow you to make some final thoughts here. So I want to put a couple of the themes together. The whole question of getting to net zero and bridging the finance gap in low carbon solutions. As part of that, the risk mitigation, right? And you talked a little bit about the ESG and the S part and the social and community. But I want to hear, and I think the audience would be very interested in your thoughts on managing risk in emerging markets. You obviously have that at the core of your business model. And that's sort of one part. And the other part I'd like you to address, because I think it's absolutely interconnected with that question, is this issue of jobs, workforce, reskilling. It's something we're hearing a lot now. You mentioned the new administration in VC. They have a mantra, higher employment, lower emissions. But the question is, how can that be done in Latin America, where you've seen such a huge economic impact? So this question of social risk mitigation and employment, I know it's a lot, but here, please take at least 30 seconds.
This brings us into geopolitics.
Yeah.
Latin America will be the scenario of, if we are lucky, a productive competition between the US and China. Europe well behind. If we are not lucky, we will be the scenario of tough friction between the US and China. I don't know. That depends on the foreign policy of the two powers. And it has to do because the IMF the other day announced 60 billion for emerging economies. That's a joke. Imagine in every developed economic area, we're talking trillions. And here we are talking billions and with 2 digits. So it's a joke. It's absolutely meaningless. This is nothing. The tools that the world has to deal with recovery of Latin America and Africa are the multinationals, corporations, the multilateral organizations, and the national development agencies. And those have to be given a war chest that starts with T. If the war chest doesn't start with a T, the only one that will give a war chest with a T to their tools are the Chinese. Especially because we don't know how many renminbis the Chinese print. And the renminbi is a currency of exchange. So it will not be easy to compete unless there is a war chest inside the IMF, the World Bank, the IDB, the African Development Bank, the European Development Bank, that goes beyond Europe. So that's one thing. Second, the corporation. What the corporation need? They need insurance. They need insurance. Why corporations lose appetite on risky situations? Because the insurance for investment in Western countries doesn't work as well as Sinosure work. When you are the CEO of a Chinese company and you have a project in Ecuador or in Peru or Argentina, you go to Sinosure, you get the money from Sinosure, costs you 2 points, and basically you take Chinese risk in renminbi. So you play against the government. Then if it works well, the government doesn't pay. And if it works bad, the government pays. The US used MIGA or OPIC, I don't remember which one was the government, which one was the World Bank, but the size is irrelevant. So private company, let's say I want to bring Bechtel to build a huge hydro plant in a country in Latin America, and where we have to invest 2 billion. You're crazy. See the country risk. So who will take the work? The Chinese company, because they go to Sinosure. So the government will have to build insurance for their companies to play an incentive. The incentive is go and play. I'm not crazy what I'm saying. In Norway, they developed oil industry with a system in which you offset 75% of your losses in exploration against the government. That's the way they build it. Europe built their industry on renewable through huge subsidies, a lot of chapters 11, but at the end it worked. The shale revolution has been built on mountains of chapters 11. I believe it's more than 100 of chapter 11. So this is with money. There's no miracles on earth. So the money will come into the region. If we can create a productive competition, it will be more money available. If we cannot create a productive competition, the only big money around will be Chinese. So how you deal with the risk, I think exactly now, identifying the opportunities and trying to get the US government through their leadership to get their effort to building back better and building back green beyond their border. Because if the virus has to do with climate change, national solutions do not work. If it's related to climate change, national fights with the virus do not work unless we go back to the Middle Age and we become Templars and we follow in a fortress. It's not going to work. If we want to live in a global war with democracy and market economy, we all will have to deal with climate change and pandemics. And for that, the money has to go outside the borders of the European Union and the US. National effort will not be enough. The Chinese have a view on this.
Well, and we'll hear directly from DFC in the US and the EIB in Europe later. So thank you for putting their feet to the fire for later this morning in our final panel at the La Jolla Conference. Jose Luis, one quick question, and the question from the audience: where are you investing next in Latin America? Which I think could be a nice bookend to your comments about the risk factor.
Okay, well, we had this. I'm much better talking about the rest of the people than on me because I have this emotional attachment to Argentina. So when Argentina is going up, to me, Argentina is the place. When Argentina is in a crisis, to me, Argentina is the place. So the truth is, Latin America is Argentina, Uruguay. We believe in Colombia. Colombia is through turmoil, but it's a country where we should invest. We are very, very enthusiastic with the new government in Ecuador. So those countries sound absolutely logical. I believe Guyana and Exxon, and they go together, have a big challenge on how to develop a world-class resort according to the new times. They have an opportunity there. Exxon has an opportunity there, and for sure they are studying how to do it, how to get that huge resource in time and in a friendly way. So it's a big challenge, and if Exxon can manage that, we'll keep their world leadership. So we don't have the size, but if I had the size, I would not look at Guyana, because if they want to produce with low carbon emission, the opportunities there in renewables and transition will be big. So that's my list.
Okay.
I'm optimistic. I have uncertainty on Peru, so I would wait for the election. And I have big uncertainty on Chile. I will also wait for the election.
Well, that's a wonderful discussion of the region. We will have to leave it there, but I'm going to reiterate to the rest of our panel and invite the next panel. Well, first of all, a virtual applause. Thank you very much, Jose Luis Manzano. I always enjoy talking with you, and I'm glad we were able to share our conversation with the audience as well today. Thanks for your insights. Trillions, not billions. So the next two panels.
And in the hands of women.
Trillions, not billions, in the hands of women, which is the perfect segue for me to invite the next panel and our moderator for the next panel.